Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel, and today I am going to talk about video games or computer games that I like to play when I was growing up. The reason for this is because I'm always looking for video ideas, and one of the people I'm subscribed to, she made a video about her top 10 computer games and said write in the comments below your favourite games, and I thought, well, I could write in the comments below. In fact I did, and I said I'm going to make my own video, so I'm making my own video, and I know she subscribed to me so she may see this. So games. Now this is going to show my age a little bit. Okay, so the first computer game I'm going to do is going way back in time, all the way back to the 80s. To the Amstrad CPC 464, and if you have no idea what that looks like, there is a picture on the screen now, and I love this machine. It took forever to load the games. You had to use a cassette tape. You put it in and you'd always have the same sound to go doo dee doo dee dee. It's a little bit like the old dial-up modem sound, but it has a different tune to it. And the first game I'm going to select is called Harriette Attack. This game was amazing. For the time, okay, you've got to bear this is a long time ago. People who are going to watch this now, who are used to modern games, will look at it and go, that is shit. Okay, you've got to bear in mind, for the time, this was a good game, alright? This was the height of how good graphics and playability got. And it was a very good game. It had loads of levels, and you had to play tactically. Not too tactically, it's basically just shoot the bad guys. But I think you had like guns and bombs and stuff, and different weapons, and it was just really good. So you fly along, you do the mission, then you land back on the ship. It was actually a really enjoyable game once it got past loading. See, people today, they don't appreciate how long it took to load games. I think, you think, I want to play a computer game, so you put the tape in to the tape deck, you press play. If you had to type in the command on the computer, it was like load or something like that, and then it would play the tape, and then it could take up to half an hour sometimes depending on the game, often not as long as that. So you had to plan ahead, you had to keep yourself occupied while the game was loading. And of course, if anything happened to the computer, that's it, it's wiped out. You have to load it up from the start each time. So that could be slightly annoying. There was a peripheral you could buy for this, which had a disk drive, so you could load up the games a lot faster, but we never had that. But this game was brilliant. The whole Amstrad CPC 464 was, it was just a games computer. It could do other things like word processing and spreadsheets and stuff, but to be honest, we never really used it for that in our family. I think we tried a few times. There was a office program that came with it. It's like Home Office or something, and it's like a word processor, so you could do things. We had the dot matrix printer. It was really noisy, go beep beep beep, and it was really loud. But yeah, at the time that was the height of technology. It was dot matrix and the noisy printers. The next game is Roland on the Ropes. All these years I thought it was called Roland on Ropes, and when I was looking up it's called Roland on the Ropes. But anyway, this is a good game. This one you had to learn the maps, because every map was completely different, so you had to learn from the start point to get out. You had to basically climb the ropes, avoid the bad guys. You could shoot the ghosts, I think, and on other things. There's some treasures you could find along the way, and then basically once you've got the treasures, found your way out, you go into the next level, and each level gets progressively harder, like more difficult to find your way out, more enemies, and so yeah, this is a really enjoyable game. And then this next one, Chuckie Egg. This was a classic. This was on many different formats, not just the Amstrad. This was on a lot of different systems. So any like games console that was big in the 80s would have had Chuckie Egg, and pretty much everybody had Chuckie Egg. This was an amazing game. The clip I put on the screen now is actually a clip of me playing this earlier today. I found a Chuckie Egg emulator and I'm playing it. It's actually a little bit harder to play than I remember, because the controls weren't as responsive. You could only hit 2 keys at a time, and I'm sure you could hit 3 on the original system. So you've got your directional left and right, up and down for the ladders, and jump. And like if you're running along, you want to hit a ladder, you press the direction you're going in and up. So as soon as you hit the ladder, you then go up. But I'm sure you could do the jump as well as the direction and the up and down before, but so I found I was having to constantly switch between the two different controls. Anyway, it was actually still quite enjoyable to play. The idea is to collect all the eggs, and this early levels you're basically avoiding the chickens, and the later ones, the big chick in the cage comes out and follows you around, so you're constantly having to avoid it. So yeah, that was a lot of fun. Everyone played that back in the day. From there onto the Master System, I had the original Master System, the Master System 1. There was a Master System 2 as well, which came with Alex Kidd World. I remember playing Alex Kidd World on a big arcade machine at youth club I used to go to, and I had that, but I never played it on my own system. I just had the original one, which had Safari Hunt. This was brilliant. This was with the light gun. I actually miss light guns, because modern TVs, they won't work on them, because light guns only work on the old-fashioned cathode ray tube TVs. So I had the light gun with the Master System, and I also had the light gun with my PlayStation, and I also did a couple of PlayStation 2 games as well with the light gun. And they don't have them anymore because they just won't work on modern TVs, like LED TVs and stuff like that. All these ultra thin ones, they won't work, which is why you don't tend to see them anymore. But I had loads of light gun games. I really enjoyed playing them, not just in the Master System, I said with the PlayStation as well. There was something I really enjoyed. But anyway, so Safari Hunt, very simple, just shoot the animals. But that was really addictive, because at the time it was kind of new. No one had really seen anything like this before. So obviously arcades and stuff still have the light guns, because there's like an arcade near where I live that still have them. They're still around. There's lots of different games like Time Crisis and stuff like that. So they are still there, but to actually play them at home is a lot more fun. I mean, having like the Kinects and stuff and all this motion control stuff is fun, but to actually point at the gun, there was a Resident Evil game that had the light gun as well. I forget which one it was, and that was really cool, playing against all the zombies. But I'll get onto Resident Evil a bit later. Next up, Sonic the Hedgehog. I was pretty much obsessed with Sonic the Hedgehog. I had Sonic on the Master System, the Mega Drive. I had it on other formats as well, and but I really liked it. I still remember the cheat for Sonic on the Mega Drive. It's up, down, left, right, A star, and that gives you the menu select. So yeah, that was really one of my all-time favourite games, was Sonic the Hedgehog. Sonic 1 and Sonic 2, and then obviously Sonic 1 and 2 on the Mega Drive, and Sonic 3. And there's lots of other different spin-offs of Sonic games as well at the time. I had most of them, but those particular ones at the time on the Master System, because I didn't have a Mega Drive yet. For those watching in America, the Genesis. So, but that was really quite that was just the next level of platform game. That really did, because that was Sega's answer to Mario. I was always a Sega person. I was never much of a Nintendo person, although I did have a Game Boy. But I've actually did have quite a lot of handheld things as well. But when I was thinking of these lists of games, I actually forgot all about the handheld ones. So I'm thinking, well, I couldn't have liked them that much. But then looking back, I actually played on the handheld ones quite a lot. I had the obviously the Game Boy. I had the original Game Boy. Then I had it was a Game Boy DS. I had a Neo Geo Color. And it was, some people are like, wow, Neo Geo Color. I really liked that. That was amazing. Another game which I actually did forget about when I was making this original list, and I remembered it afterwards. I thought I have to include it. Micro Machines, epic game. I spent hours playing Micro Machines. There was a multiplayer game that I really liked the multiplayer aspects on this, and I would play the multiplayer thing quite a lot. Although it was good single player, to do 2-player was really good, and you could do 4 players on the Micro Machines 2 on the Mega Drive. Was 4-player, so that is really good with friends. I went through a phase of really enjoying multiplayer games. I would actively seek out multiplayer games to get friends around, because it was all, even like in the days of like the Master System and the Mega Drive, you'd always have friends around. I have a turn, you have a turn. We'd all share, because even if they're 1-player game, you'd still like do a level, then pass the pad over, they would do a level. So everyone would take turns, so even a single player game could become a multiplayer game. Then with the Mega Drive, other games I really enjoyed. Streets of Rage 2. And this is me playing earlier today on a Streets of Rage 2 emulator, just having a quick blast through. This game, I mean, I could play this game over and over and over and over and over and over again. It really is one of my all-time favourites. Again, single player or multiplayer. But what is really good about this game is kind of like a cheat. If you're playing a single player and you run out of lives and you're about to run out of all your continues, you activate player 2, player 2 joins the game, and then player 1, when dies and finally run out of all their continues, you just carry on as player 2 and get all the way to the end. So I used to do that. It's kind of cheating, but it works out. Oh, I just thought of another game, Mortal Kombat. The original Mortal Kombat on the Mega Drive to get the cheats. I still remember this, even though I don't have to look it up. ABAC, ABB, that will get you the gore mode. I just remember these things because I always used to do it. So I got Golden Axe 2, again another classic 2-player game. Single player, 2-player. I think you could do the same thing with that. You could actually jump in as player 2 like quite late in the game, so if you're about to die you can just jump in as player 2, same as Streets of Rage 2. Moving on from the Mega Drive, I think I've got all the games that are included. I think I've got all the games I thought of earlier. Moving on from the Mega Drive, obviously the PSX came out. The PSX was a game changer, quite frankly. This was revolutionary, and the 32-bit graphics. Obviously the Mega Drive did have the 32X and the Mega CD, but I never had those. They never really took off, I think. But this kind of then happened continuously. Sega were constantly playing catch up to Sony. They had the 32X, they had the Mega CD, and Sony had the PlayStation. Of course, Sega then came out with the Saturn, and they couldn't compete with the PlayStation. Of course, then the Dreamcast came out and the PlayStation 2 just came out and whipped its arse. It was just a continuous cycle until eventually Sega stopped making consoles. But with the PSX, this was a whole new level. Obviously, I can't name every single game I had. The thing is, I had hundreds of games back in the day. I can't name, I mean, I played every single one of my games with fondness, and I mean, I could probably redo this whole list with a completely different set of games. But the games, I'm just doing the games that I thought of first. I think, and if I think of these games first, these are probably the games that I liked to play the most. And I'm just thinking about like the Lion King on the Mega Drive, but I never finished that. There's a really hard waterfall level. If you played it, you'll know what I mean. But anyway, onto the PSX. Resident Evil 2. Let's start off with Resident Evil 2. Fantastic game. I mean, I know Resident Evil games are still going, but they're kind of all like 3D now and first person. This one was quite cool because a few games at the time, I think Final Fantasy VII as well did this. You have like just a still image, and it's, you know, beautifully drawn still image, like a photograph, and the character just walks around it. I really liked that, and I still kind of like that feature. I'm not sure if modern games do it quite to the extent because it's so spooky and eerie, and it's just at the time the Resident Evil 2 was just, and for me Resident Evil 2 is far superior to number 1 or number 3. I think I did have number 3, and I mentioned earlier I had the gun game. Was that Nemesis? I'm not sure, I might be wrong, but used to play this around my friend's house quite a lot. It's a house where everyone went, just, you know, playing on the game. And then also Gran Turismo, and again, multiplayer game. This was another really big thing at the time. Gran Turismo, I mean, I don't think Gran Turismo now is quite as big and popular as it used to be, because there's so many racing games out there now. But at the time, Gran Turismo, well, I had the first one, and then when Gran Turismo 2 came out, that just, you know, blew it away. I think I had 3 as well, I'm not sure. I might have had 1, 2 and 3, but for some reason I remember 2 more than the others. And this was just on a whole nother level of brilliantness. And obviously with the PSX, you had the save cartridge, so you could, you know, save your progress. I mean, a few Mega Drive games you could save your position, or like with the Master System games that would give you a code and you'd have to write down, so you knew where you were. so games like that's how you would save, you know, and you'd have all the bits of paper, your list all down. Obviously I can't list every game, as I mentioned earlier. I had a lot of games. I actually worked in the game shop, so I used to play the games early. I mean, I used to be able to, if the games generally came out on the Friday, but they would come into the shop like a week before, so our manager would let us take them away, play them, so we knew what they were like when they released. So I just used to go to my friend's house and we'd play all the latest games. So we usually had them completed by the time they actually came out. So yeah, they loved me. Well, they loved what I could do for them by getting them the games. Other than that, they just spent the whole time playing GoldenEye on the N64, unless I came round with my PlayStation 2, because I was one of the few people that had one at the time, because when they very first came out, they were very expensive, but because I worked in game, I got a bit of money off. And one of my favourite games, because it's multiplayer, I keep seeing things back here, do you see that? I saw something earlier and I just ignored it, and I just saw a couple of things then. Anyway, I don't know what that is. Maybe it's some light. I've got the camera light on, but if I hold my hand up close you can see it's lit. Maybe it's just some dust reflecting in the light. Or it's a spirit orb. No, it's probably dust. Yeah, so Tekken... Ooh, the light's gone out. Why's the light gone out? I didn't tell the light to go out. That's weird. Why did the light go off? Ah. Strange. Very strange. Anyway, Tekken Tag Tournament, because this was a 4-player game if you had the multi-tap. And at the time, oh my god, it was so difficult to get the 4-player multi-tap. I searched everywhere, eventually managed to order one. Oh, the light's gone out again. I don't know what's going on with the light, hang on. Okay, now my white balance is off. I'm having technical glitches. Alright, where was I? What was I talking about? Oh yeah, Tekken Tag Tournament. Yeah, because it was 4-player. So again, friend's house. I'd bring my PlayStation 2 around. I did every time I went there. I bought the PlayStation 2 around, because I was like the only person that had one at the time. And then played Tekken Tag Tournament, the 4-player multi-tap. This was brilliant. 4 players together, tag teaming was really good. Tekken Tag on its own isn't actually a brilliant single-player game, to be honest. As fighting games go, as I mentioned Mortal Kombat earlier, that's actually quite a good game on its own. And there are other Tekken games which are quite fun on their own, but I found Tekken Tag as a single player game wasn't brilliant. But if you play it to its full potential with 4 people, then suddenly you're really, you know, that is just elevates it to such another level. I mean, having 2 players is fun, but then when you've got tag team over here and a tag team over here, that just really, it was a really fun, enjoyable game. But that's more because you're interacting, you know, there's 4 of you all interacting together, so that really made it much more of an entertaining game. As I mentioned a little bit earlier, I mentioned about Nintendo 64 and GoldenEye, because that could be 4-player, and often would do 4-player on that. So yeah, that was a fun game, but I never actually owned a Nintendo, that was already at the house, and I would bring my PS2 around. I don't think I've got any more PS2 games on my list. I'd say I had hundreds of games. As I say, I worked at a game shop at the time, so I had a lot of games. I was really heavily into it. But what I started to notice, I mean, I used to pay like 40-50 quid for my system games, and then they kind of devalued completely, and then I'd pay the same amount for my Mega Drive games, and then they devalued. Then I was paying the same for my PlayStation X games, and then my PlayStation 2 games. I'm thinking, I'm paying a fortune for these games. Well, actually, at this point, I was paying quite a little, because I was getting them with staff discount. And they were devaluing so much, and I was just thinking, what is the point? Why am I spending all this money to get the latest games when they just devalue so quickly? I know there's like a really healthy second-hand market now, and a lot of people only buy the games second-hand, which is probably quite wise, to be honest. But I sort of lost interest for a little while. But I also, around the same time, just stumbled across a demo of Warcraft 2 on the PC, and I love this demo. I played this demo over and over and over and over again, and then eventually I caved in and bought the full game, and I played that, and then I got the expansion pack, and I still have it somewhere. It's not actually installed on my computer, but I've still got the original installation CD somewhere for Warcraft 2 and the expansion pack. They were brilliant. Of course, when Warcraft 3 came out, I was just like, I have to get this. And I played it, and I played it, and I played it. And to be honest, I still play Warcraft 3 to this day, with the expansion. That was just something else. I tend to just play the custom games, because with it you can play the campaign games and you can also play the custom games. You can make your own levels, and it was a really good online thing, although to be honest, every time I went online I got my ass whipped really fast. So it's like, okay, that's just a shit. But I actually really enjoy it. Even today, all these years later, I still have a copy installed on an old computer, and I enjoy making the levels, and there's so much you can do. There's so much technical details you can put into making the levels. I'm still learning new things now about the level creator, to change the aspects of the gameplay and play it. I know it's a long time since that game came out. Warcraft World, I did play that for a bit. I had a trial version and I played that continuously, like night and day. I was heavily addicted to it, and then I was halfway through a quest, and then just like that my trial expired because it was on a time limit, and I was like, oh my god, I need to pay to extend, but I couldn't, because I was actually, even though I'm in the UK, I was playing on an American server because that's where my friends played, and the American server doesn't accept the UK card. So what they were doing is using a friend in America to pay for it initially, to get you up and going. Then you'd pay the friend back, and then you could then switch it over to PayPal and then keep your account going via PayPal. But I didn't do that, and I'm so glad I didn't, because that game is addictive as heck. It really is. And I know if I had actually paid, I'd probably still be addicted to it now to this day, because I still play the original Warcraft 3, even though it's quite a different game. The story continues on throughout the games, even though Warcraft World is very different to Warcraft 3. But I like those sort of games. And I also played SimCity 2000 a lot. But then the computer that was on died, and I didn't have another copy of the disc to re-upload it. Although recently, although it's been out for a few years now, I've got SimCity 5, and that came out in 2013, and it's like now 2018. But I recently got SimCity 5, and I've got the expansion pack, Cities of Tomorrow, and I do play that a lot even to this day. I'm not sure if I've forgotten anything. So every time I look over, I'm looking at my laptop. But it's not listed out in a very good order. Basically, just looking at thumbnails of pictures. So it's not very helpful. So I can't list every single game I've played. I mean, there's a Master System tennis game I used to love. I mean, it was shit. And like on the Amstrad, there's a football game I used to play. Again, that was shit, but I loved it because that was as good as it got at the time. But I had loads of Master System games. At the time, it was my mission to get all of them. I had them all lined up, because when a Master System game came out, on the back of the box, well, on the side of the box, it would have a number, and it was the number of the game. So I would make sure all my games were in numerical order, so you knew exactly which game was where. And oh, I had so many, and they're all lined up. And then I've got the Mega Drive, and I had the adapter. But no, look, I mean, I don't play. I mean, I don't play games as much as I used to. I mean, I do play SimCity quite a lot. Theme Park, I used to play that, the old DOS game. I actually played that recently on this laptop. I had to get a DOS emulator, but it was a bit glitchy, and you couldn't save your progress. Even if you clicked on save, it didn't save, and then it would crash, and then you'd have to start from the beginning. So it's just like, it's not worth it. But and if you're wondering what a DOS emulator is, before Windows there was DOS, and you had to boot games up in DOS, a game like Theme Park. So yeah, so those are some of the games I used to play, the ones that I remembered. Obviously, as I mentioned, I did have quite a few handheld things. I never had a Game Gear, although I did enjoy playing my friend's Game Gear. Had the Game Boy. Of course, with the Game Boy, again multiplayer, you could have the cable which would connect one Game Boy to another. So in the school playground, we'd all be like sitting there with our Game Boys, all with connected up to play to play two-player games on that, so that was quite cool. Anyway, if you enjoyed this video, I've got loads of others, and hopefully my camera won't glitch out in those and do weird things. And I've got film reviews, other things like what I like music. I've got a music one, and I've got a film one, old things I used to watch and listen to. Also, I've got loads of other film reviews and how-to videos and lots of other weird things. And so yeah, check them out if you like them. Subscribe. It helped me so much, you will not believe, because of YouTube has changed the way they do things. But I'm not going to go on about it, because I've been going on about it quite a bit, and unfortunately you're going to see it in some future videos where I go on about it, because these are not uploading in the order I'm filming them, because in a future video I'm going to have a beard and longer hair, because I've already recorded them, but they're scheduled for later. I'm just talking nonsense now. Anyway, I'm going to go. I'll see you later. Bye.